So this is part 2 of my mermaid encounter. To kind of understand this encounter, you'll have to watch part 1.
Hello, welcome back. This video is part 2 of part 1, clearly, that was focusing on the girl from TikTok that was speaking about the encounter that she had on the beach with what she said was a mermaid. To go and watch the first one because that will really set you up for this second experience that we're going to be decoding. Here's the video, come back after for the analysis.
So watch that video and then come back to this one. So I'm just going to cut to the chase. Now this encounter happened when I was like 20 or 21 and it happened in a dream. What makes this dream so vivid is that I have a mark on my wrist. And people think I'm nuts, like, oh, no, you didn't get that from a dream. I promise you it was from that dream because I had no marks on my body prior to that dream. And a lot of people ask me, what did the mermaid look like? Now, this particular mermaid looked like a white woman. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and, she had skin of a white woman. But her skin was a bit more pale than, like, the normal Caucasian. So in this dream, I'm sitting at the beach. I remember hearing the seashells knocking against each other. I remember hearing the ocean, like it was very calming. Now, prior to me dreaming, like I had a normal day, nothing out of the ordinary to make me dream such a dream. I do remember like when I was preparing for bed, like I had this crazy feeling like something was gonna happen to me, but I just brushed it off and went to bed anyways. So in this dream, I remember I'm looking straight ahead and I seen this really bright light. And it's funny because when I close my eyes, I can see that specific light in my vision. So I remember the light got so bright to where I got up and walked away. And as I'm walking away, someone was like, hey, very quickly. And I turn around and it's this white woman standing there, butt fucking naked in front of me. And I remember I walked up to her, I'm like, who are you? What do you want? I don't understand. Who are you? And her voice was so gentle. She's like, it's okay. It's all right. We should go for a swim. And at this point, we're kind of standing face to face to one another. And I remember I told her no, like, I don't want to go swimming with you. I had this weird, uneasy feeling. And she's like, I remember she tilted her head and was like, yes, you are. And at that point, I sensed danger. I'm like, I'm not going swimming with you. And before I could turn around and walk away, she grabbed me by my left wrist. Like she pulled my wrist so fucking hard towards her. I couldn't get out of her grip. And I remember her voice got deep. Her eyes got all black. Like there was no white parts of her eyes anymore. And she's like, you're gonna go swimming with me. And proceeds to walk to the ocean. Now, at this point, I'm fighting for my damn life. I remember my heart was beating so fast. I started screaming. Oh my God. You know how you try to scream in a dream and it's like nothing comes out? Like that's what was happening. But I was screaming so hard. And when she's dragging me to the ocean, I remember I'm looking up and like she's looking straight ahead and she's dragging me to the ocean. Now, at this point, like we're deep in the ocean. I remember though, I was able to breathe before she started choking me. So I remember we're underwater and we're face to face. And with one hand, she had me by my wrist still. And the other hand, she grabbed me by my throat. And when I say the grip was like so inhumane, like it was so hard around my neck. And I'm screaming and I'm fighting for my life. And there's just nothing prevailing for me. All of a sudden, to the left of us, there's this really loud noise. It was a bright light, and the noise was so loud. It's like it was only us in the ocean at the time. So after hearing this noise and this really bright light, like the light was so bright that it caused the mermaid to unrelease my grip and cover her eyes. After that, I woke up. Now, this is the interesting part. After I woke up, I was not in my bed. I was not in my room. I was in a completely different section of the house. And I started vomiting water. Like the water didn't even taste like regular drinking water. My throat was so dry, it was burning. as I'm throwing up water. I remember I was so hysterical. I called my best friend. I love her to death. I called her and I told her, like, please come over. I just had the craziest dream. To this day, I really feel like that mermaid saw my first encounter when I was younger and tried to take me out, because both of the encounters were kind of similar but different in a way.
Okay, welcome back. Okay, if you've decided to join in this video, let me introduce myself once more. I am Rosie. I am your resident bridge walker, threshold guardian, amongst other things. What is that, you might ask? It means that I kind of have 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in 1,010,000 other worlds at the same time, all happening real time, all right? That's the most basic explanation I'm going to give you for that. So what I like to do is I like to pop the trunk and pop the lid and look under the hood to see what the mechanics of reality are. I'm pretty fluent in what I like to call reading, air quotes, the matrix, the symbolism, the archetypes, finding the magic in the mundane, full-on paragraphs and sentences, all right? So that's what I love to do. In all seriousness, I do love to decode. That is my bread and butter. I love it. Now I say, if you watched the first video, it was pretty cut and dry. So let me just add here. We all can decode and we all can interact and read our realities, all right? But some people find it a little bit harder than others, and some people might just need a bit of nudging in order to notice pattern recognition around you and what all that could mean. So it's fun for me. I do it in my life for the serious things, and I just do it for everything. I can't turn it off. I can't. It's just there. So I do these videos, like, one, it's fun. Two, I do it just to show you. You don't have to buy into this is not telling you this is the way and this is the way only. This is showing you how it can be done, how dots can be made. So you see what I mean? Now, the first video I did where we decoded the real experience, okay, that this girl had, I gave my interpretations. So this second one, as we can see, it's a little bit more vague, and it was a dream. So I decided, all right, the way that I'm going to be framing these from now on, because this gives me way more time to play, it gives me more chance to play, gives you more chance to play, it gives us more chance to widen the scope of reality, is I'm going to be working on the assumption that what is happening and what's being told to us is true. So we already know, well, that could be bollocks, this could be that, whatever. There's no point in making a fucking video if that was the case. We are going to be working on the assumption, and I will be putting cards up because I know people love to misinterpret or just forget, okay, that what we are dealing with is true. If this was true, what could be going on here? That's how I'm going to be framing. Everything you're now going to hear in this video is working on the assumption. I'm literally going to leave it on the back of the screen just in case people forget. So we're not going to be asking, did this really happen? We're not going to be asking, did it really happen? We're going to be assuming it did. And we're going to be asking, what is this telling us about reality? All right, air quotes. What is this telling us about consciousness, lineage, and the magic in the mundane? Finding the magic in the mundane. That's the premise. So grab your goggles, because clearly it's a mermaid one today. We're jumping in, Jesus Christ. Somebody give me some armbands, because you know I don't like deep water. Let's go. Video number 2, the dream. This, if you've not watched the first, go back. This has a very different energy to the first encounter. So first of all, the fact that it's a dream kind of puts us in a different bracket, all right? That's why I'm like, I'm going to reframe it like, let's imagine this is real. Because we already can see and we already know that the fact that it is a dream, we may be woo-woo, but we are not ridiculous, okay? We may be woo-woo, but we are not reckless. We may be quantum, but we are not crazy, okay? So what I mean is that, like, I know dreams can be just anything, but dreams also can say a lot, all right? So we've already just shifted that to the side. So we're going to imagine that there is meaning here. I'm going to look at some of the archetypal things that I'm sensing, as well as some of the, like, more out there stuff that potentially could be going on. So it's a complete different to the first encounter. This dream is hostile, you know, and she goes and says at the end that she believes that the mermaid in the dream perhaps knew of her initial encounter when she was 8 and wanted to take her out, so wanted to kill her, which I found, that's a big jump. I would be like, but why? Like, I'm not shading her, but I'm like, to me that makes no sense. That makes no sense without more context. I wouldn't understand. Why would that be the case? Why wait so long? All right, let's look at it more. So overall, firstly, it's kind of like the first thing that I noticed, or that we can see, is that like it really actually seems like when people speak about abductions by UFOs, or in that arena, it seems quite similar. Like you hear that like we've got a bright light, we've got being taken against your will, we've got the unable to move, unable to really do anything, almost just like being just watching, but not being able to really kind of like stop anything that's going on. And then we've got the waking up in a different part of the house and actually vomiting up water, which kind of, and then having a mark, right, which seems to indicate that it wasn't just a dream, that there was something that was happening somatically, at least there was something that was physical, something happened. Marks on the body, marks, it is giving UFO, it's giving, I say this all the time, faith Aries, which is why sometimes when we talk about these things, I sometimes think that it literally is just different genre, different times, same beings. It's just expressed differently across time, and depending on your background and your communities, it will be perceived as something different. But the underlying current here kind of feels the same. It is giving abduction law of sorts in that way. That's the first thing that I noticed. Esoterically as well, not even just esoterically, spiritually, we also associate the bright light with the incarnational streams. Dying, particularly out-of-body experiences. Go towards the light, don't go towards the light, depending on what you're reading, or even the birth canal, the light tunnel. So the light is really associated with outside realms, things outside of this reality. Just in general, having a bright light kind of is giving us, okay, we are now walking in the waters again of liminality. All right, it's really interesting, this one actually. The light of mysticism, spiritual force, like light beings, source light, it kind of is giving that. Now, as opposed to the sea moss, I think it was more of a mermaid in the first story, we now have a butt naked, pale, blue-eyed mermaid, siren, whatever she wanted to call it, in her face. It's that other. She was the archetypically opposite to OP here, who is a black dreadlocked female. Now we've got the white blue-eyed woman. So there's like you're definitely not me. She did not feel comfortable with this. There was no sweetness like the first story. She was forcibly taken, and she becomes quickly very predatory, giving the classic black eyes, which everybody associates with black-eyed kids, demonic, whether you want to say that. Just it goes straight into duality. The basics, good versus evil, is what is happening here in her mind. Okay, so this person is clearly bad. We do not know her intentions. So symbolically, this is kind of powerful because it conjures up woundings, colonialism. All right, in a lot of, I guess, the African diaspora, the Caribbean, the white, air quotes, mermaid can be viewed, well, not with viewed suspicion. We're just going back in time, how white people, they colonized, they came and took black people of color against their will, enslaved them, no agency, almost the iron grip that she said of her hold around her hand and neck would have been the iron chains that would have been around her wrists and neck as a slave, as they were being taken to wherever it was, the new land that they were being sent to, without their input. It didn't matter, right? So that's a very deep wound, one that I've touched on in another video. Actually, I don't think I've released that one yet. So basically, it's like an agent of colonial trauma, which we cannot deny. So like, you can see, like, OP, like, she's very, like, looks like she's a black girlie with dreads, very into sort of black spirituality. So for her, I'm imagining that the figure of, like, this white, pale, blonde mermaid is not just like a random other. Like, it is very loaded, like I said, with perhaps colonial and generational subtext. So that being historically, she, the white female mermaid, is the historic power, the colonizer, the other, whose tears or touch can historically mean disaster, all right? Hashtag Emmett Till, all right? Etc. So she's both alluring and dangerous, inviting and predatory. And, I'm sure that there's that level of, like, distrust, perhaps, there. is this a harbinger of bad, like is something bad about to happen? What is going on? So we also can look at it then from generational wound inheritance, so this woman could be, the mermaid in the dream could be symbolic of the living sort of avatar of an unhealed wound, all right, in the dreamer's lineage, in the girl's lineage. So an ancestral trauma, a lost contract, or, the weight of generations of just imbalance, okay? And they're literally trying to, air quote, surface in these waters for acknowledgement and maybe even to be transmuted. So it might not, so that's when we're looking at it symbolically and not taking it so literally. The fact that the dream is taking place, like we say, in a liminal place, which is at the beach, the threshold area. As I said in the first video, we can see that the dreamer is in that in-between world state. And this sort of like new selfhood and the ancestor / shadow is showing up and it's really uncomfortable, but very undeniable, in your face, dragging you into the ocean form. It reminded me super quickly, it went in my mind, I remember there was the bear versus man on this TikTok trend, and I remember there was this lady that actually brought up, what about for black women, boardroom, would you rather be the white man, white woman? And most people were like, the man. And it really brought a lot of interesting reactions out. There were some women that were like, they were like, what do you mean, why is this becoming a woman and woman thing? No, why does it always have to be about colour? What's happening? And the lady was like, no, just that some people were saying, we know, like, sometimes, white tears have been historically quite bad. But it can really ruin livelihoods or ruin black women's lives or whatever. And ironically, a white lady actually ended up getting her channel demonetized, so she actually did stop her income. That just came into my mind because it was just the way the mermaid's transition with the being all gentle into this. So there's a mask of safety, and then the use of exertion of force that you are now at the behest of, you can't get out of it. So this all does come into play, even if it's not very literally. These are all the things that are kind of swimming in the collective, no pun intended, which could be coming through out into her dream. That's worth pointing out. So OP out here is being dragged into the deep waters of her own psyche, perhaps, and maybe even her spiritual path, as well as into maybe sort of an ancestral role that maybe she's meant to pick up on, because the second thing that I was going to say, but before I do that, I will quickly finish what I was going to say, which is that the people in the dream is not just like literal people. Remember, these are archetypes. So I'm not just dragging it down to basics. These are archetypes. They're playing out roles. The black dreamer, the white bad siren mermaid, the call to depth, the struggle with voice and agency. As a woman, as a black woman, even just as these are things that maybe the OP is actually processing for herself in real time, real life. This is so different to the first dream. So as I was going to say, why it comes back around, because when I was here looking at it the first time, the first thing I thought was, she was like, it's a negative dream, it was bad. To me, actually, it smacked of an initiation dream. I've had a few myself in different ways, in different areas, and they are never literal. You need to decode what's happening. And something that can seem really violent and really crazy is actually not what it actually is. So the first encounter she had was so lovely and nice, and she even herself said, people were saying, it could have been sort of an initiation kiss or something like that. And I thought similar, and I'm thinking, because it's like planting the seed for a later date. Now this dream felt very opposite to her. I think she was taking it quite literally, not to say that maybe wasn't literal, but it actually really does read as an initiation. She refused to swim. She refused to swim willingly. So she didn't want to do it. Now, historically, you've probably heard of in shamanism. They say that you don't choose, the spirits call you. You are called by the spirits. And if you refuse the call, life is going to get really hard and tricky. Because they will keep knocking on your door in various ways until you say yes. So what we're seeing here with you're coming to swim, it could be that she is, this is a role, this is, like I said, a spiritual path. I think she's water coded anyway, that perhaps she's meant to take up. So nobody said they're going to come to you singing like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs with like birds at the window saying, are you ready to the call now? If you look at all this symbolically, it looks like an initiation dream. All right, she's on the shoreline. She's again at the threshold. She's in that place of liminality, the deep ocean of the psyche. All right. She's met by an other, something outside of herself, because that's how it would feel. And she's asked. She says no. But they're like, no, maybe it's not a no. You're coming. You're marked, maybe. All right. maybe something was set in motion before her, whether it's connected to her own soul lineage or whether it's connected to maybe a tradition that her family is involved in. Because remember, nobody's knocking going, oh, didn't you know that this is what Aunt Sally, this is what did their, like, no, there's no niceties. It's like, I'm coming to collect. Now that probably sounds worse than I mean it, but what I mean is that she could, this, it doesn't have to be negative. I feel when I'm looking at it, it looks like we've got the spiritual, the initiation started. We've come back. In fact, it's 8 years, isn't it? From 18 years. 8 to, I think it was, did you say she was 20? Yeah, it would have been, her first one was 8 and the second one was 18 years later. So we have the same meaning when I said about 8 being a gate, all right? And 1 being new beginnings. And 8 and 1 being endings, meaning the ending of her old way as she's now maybe about to step into this new role and step up in her, I'm imagining, the spirituality, or at least the consciousness of what her consciousness levels of maybe what her soul had on the old agenda to do. And so the dream, it seems really violent. It seems violent. It's aggressive. She's being choked. She's been held underwater. A lot of initiations, especially water initiations, they take place under the water. But it felt so violent for her. I mean, please, I'm not giving any reasons as to that, because I literally think some of these initiation dreams could be way nicer. I always say, looking up, like, can they just be a tad softer, please? Sometimes, but sometimes, like I said, it's not literal, and sometimes it is a marker of the totality of everything. Not everything is like love and light. There's a shadow side, but in our shadows we find often our strength. All right, it's not to be feared, it's to be mastered and to be integrated within you. But the shadows come in the form, like I said, of it could come in the form of the trauma, the generational things that are going on, whatever you feel in the everyday life, and so it mingles all up in the dream, and it feels very violent, or it can feel very, this has got nothing to do with me, because you don't recognize your fragments in the dream state because they're very symbolic. So maybe girlie's not ready, she's resisting, all right, and that could be what we're seeing. Perhaps the dream is to show her that there's still parts of her shadow side, or shadow self, that her shadows that she might need to integrate within herself. You know, that would be dependent. But at the end, we do see the light that ends up saving her. So it could talk about she's stronger than she thinks. The resilience that she has maybe can be stronger than she thinks. This is where I'm saying sometimes that maybe it's got nothing to do with mermaids. Maybe mermaids are just symbols in this specific situation. Do I think... But for real, I actually do think this symbolic thing is happening, but no, I do believe that there is an aquatic situation going on here. That's just my opinion on the side. This video is getting long. I'm going to have to split it into another one, actually. I'm going to have to do part 3 for this. I wasn't planning on it, but I think that's necessary to kind of try to fit everything in. So going back quickly, the first childhood one was beautiful, lovely, because it's what she could handle. The second is a test off from the shadow side to see, how we're going to deal. How are you going to deal? All right. The shadow comes through, however. All right, it could be a challenge. It doesn't necessarily mean being taken out. However, we are in the quantum. So all the things that I'm saying could be happening at the same time, because someone would sit there and say, listen, maybe that is symbolic, but I know that this is what's going on because I've been watching conspiracy theory videos and I know that they are taking mermaid and they're eating mermaid meat. That's what the other one that I'm going to talk about was. I say, all right, relax. Nobody's denying your reality. I'm adding to it. All right. It's potentially... Everything is happening at the same time, so it can all be true at once. 2 things, 3 things, 4 things, 5 things, 6 things, 7 things, 8 things, because that's the number, can be true at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So we're not throwing anything out of the boat just yet. I'm really coming up with all these puns. So we have a mark, which is there, can give us a clue. I'll put the mark up here anyway. I might have another look at it, and if there's anything else that comes to me, I might do another video on it. I might not, okay? I wonder if she's had any lost time. That would be interesting to know. Any more patterns to that, etc. But it's interesting that she was grabbed by the left wrist as well, because that's the feminine, that's the receptive side. That's also quite... It can be a sign of claiming, or it could be a people, a cosmic people, that she's not recognizing herself as that because she's in the reality that she's living now. From that dream, I'm like... It sounds very violent. I do not think that she was trying to be taken out because of the way that she said in the first video. I don't. I do feel that this was an initiation. It was a continual initiation of somebody who I think is water coded. And I don't think it's necessarily, in the strict sense of the word, a black versus white thing. All right, the trauma, the situations are there, but you can hear what I'm saying. It's not them versus us. Okay, there's a deeper level of things that are going on here. I think there's a lot of integration that's happening, because in these even in the initiations, you sort of have a certain level of consciousness that you hold within yourself before things starts to happen. So it's not all like, oh, it's all cosmic and all supernatural type shit, and it's got nothing to do with the regular mundane stuff that you might talk about in therapy. Like, it's all connected. So how you feel about things, how you integrate it into yourself, that's all part of how you grow in your consciousness. How much you expand, how much you can take in shows how much light you've got, And they talk about the light body and stuff like that being like, the more you air quotes upgrade, the more light your physical vessel can take. So the actual sign of having a very bright light here could even have been symbolic of, we're leveling up a little bit here, right? Leveling up a little bit. Until I add the last part, and then everything gets flipped on its head. So join me in the next video, because we're going to do that, because literally there's no time to do it in this video. All right? Okay, catch you later. Bye.